Welcome back to the FTN Team Preview Series, NFL season around the corner. We're ready to roll. I'm Mike Randle, host here at Randle Rant on X. And today we go down to South Beach. We go down to Miami and have the great Josh Houtz in with us here to talk about the Dolphins. Josh is fantastic. You can find him on X at Houtz, Houtz. He is a Miami Dolphins insider, does incredible work. Josh, we are going to kick it off here. Slim down Tua. Is this a problem? Do we care? He certainly looked good last year, so I don't know why it's going to be a problem, but talk about the update with his contract and how he's doing.
Yeah, well, the first thing that I think is the most funny is that picture going around from Yahoo, right? He's literally in pads in one picture, and so you can't even really see the transformation. But he has absolutely slimmed down this year, and it's almost, a complete 180 from last season. Everybody wanted him to stay healthy. He took the jiu-jitsu, learned how to fall and things like that. So this year he's working on getting his body right, slimming down a little bit more to become more mobile. And, as we know, the NFL game continues to evolve. So this guy at one point was, I think, the number one dual threat quarterback coming out of high school. So maybe we add some of those RPOs and let him use his legs a little bit more. So I'm intrigued to see what happens. I hope it doesn't, come at the cost of any of that health that we saw as durability last season. But Tua Tagovailoa looks great, and I'm excited to see what happens. As for the contract, I mean, these two sides have been going back and forth for a while now. I can't really say on what they're, caught up on. I don't know if it's guaranteed money, maybe another year. But it does sound like Tua Tagovailoa wants to get paid, northward of that Jared Goff money, that Justin Herbert money. So I'm not entirely sure what they're hung up on, but I do think a deal will get done. And I think Tua Tagovailoa will be happy in the end of it. So a lot going on right now. Thankfully, it's that little part of the all season that's a break, but new deals coming and big things on the horizon for the Miami Dolphins.
Now, Josh, you know the deal with us here, FTN Fantasy Football. Of course, yes. We're getting ready. We kick it off now, Memorial Day. It used to be July 4th. Now it's Memorial Day. One of the major places we want to focus is Miami backfield. All right. Raheem Mostert, we loved him. I couldn't have been any greater last year. And Achane, also explosive, fantastic, even in a limited role because he had some injuries as well. But now they bring in Jaylen Wright. You know that Mike McDaniel has a need for speed. So my next question, sort this out. I assume Mostert is still going to get the majority of touches, particularly at the goal line. But how do you think this works with the touch share here? Because Achane was just as good when he was healthy and he was on the field.
Yeah, you're right. Achane looked fantastic. So the more you can get him out there involved, I mean, that's really the thing here. You mentioned Mostert being a lead back. I think last season, a lot of people were speculating, would it be Mostert? Would it be Jeff Wilson? We all saw Raheem Mostert grab that job by the horns and run with it. 21 touchdowns last season. Mike McDaniel said yesterday, this is a competition or a very good room across the board. So he said he didn't want to sit there and truly name a starter necessarily, but he did say it's led by Raheem Mostert. So I do believe Raheem Mostert will be that RB1 per se, at least next season. But long term, I mean, you have a predicament on your hand, right? Devon Achane looked absolutely insane when he touched the ball, 800 yards, the 8 touchdowns, I think almost 8 yards per carry. And now you bring in Jaylen Wright, who's a little bit more physical. So I think what really stood out to me was Mike McDaniel's presser saying that he's trying these guys at different spots. So perhaps we see Achane maybe lined up in the slot a bit more, maybe utilizing more of his pass catching capabilities. So that's what I'm most intrigued about, how he uses these different monsters, these different weapons that they have. Because we mentioned Jeff Wilson, there's still Salvon Ahmed lingering, Chris Brooks. I mean, some of those guys are obviously going to get cut, but I think the big names in that backfield right now, like you said, are Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane. And then we'll see, how we'll see what comes of, Jaylen Wright, because that dude does have the capabilities to be an absolute difference maker in that backfield.
And Josh, there's a follow-up. In your opinion, the durability issues with Achane are real, which is probably why the right selection happened.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's exactly what that is. And I mean, that's what you're kind of, in that predicament with, right? How many touches can you give him when he can stay healthy? But now you have Jaylen Wright in there, so maybe can keep, those guys healthy and use more of a rotation, as we'll see. But yeah, there's definitely durability concerns with Achane.
Turning to the passing game, Tyreek Hill, are we going to get 2K? I mean, just incredible. Jaylen Waddle signed, refreshed, and replenished. He battled through as well, but certainly maybe the best 1-2 punch in all of the NFL. My question is about the third wide receiver. Do they want it to be Odell Beckham? Can you see him sort of developing here? And also, tight end, not a position that was used heavily last year, but I think Jonnu Smith signed for a big enough contract that Mike McDaniel's going to have plans for him as well. He was the equal to Kyle Pitts in terms of production last year in Atlanta, so I don't think you bring him over if you're not going to use him. So sort out here passing game targets, how this is going to go this year for Miami.
Yeah, again, a great question. Something we hope to see sort out more in training camp. But
Yeah.
I mean, 2022, Trent Sherfield was at wide receiver 3, de facto. Last season, they went with Barrios and Cedric Wilson. So you're clearly getting an upgrade, right? With Odell Beckham Jr. We saw him be, a little bit of that Odell from before last season with the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, his better days are behind him, but it's definitely an intriguing option. But you mentioned Jonnu Smith, and that's kind of the guy that gets overlooked through all this. And yesterday, Mike McDaniel, referred to him as a yak monster and a guy who, when the defenses are more concerned about the Jaylen Waddles and Tyreek Hills, even the Odell Beckham Jr.'s, you're not really concerned about Jonnu Smith, who can maybe take that, little dump off and pick up those extra yardage. So this is a tight end that the Dolphins have not had, in many years. I know a lot of fans were hyped about Mike Gesicki, but Jonnu Smith, in my opinion, could do more after the catch, is a better player than Mike Gesicki. So definitely intrigued to see what he can do. But I think you nailed it right there with the Odell Beckham Jr. and Jonnu Smith. How those targets feed will be very interesting to see. And then you got Eric Ezukanma, who's, at times throughout preseason, this guy was a stud. I mean, he's made plays that looked like he we joke, but a Debo Samuel type role in that Miami Dolphins offense, the way they utilize him in the motion and get him the ball. So that's an intriguing name if he's healthy. And then Malik Washington, we all know what he did in college. So those are guys maybe later down the line if we're in dynasty, right? Everyone's obsessed with that. We're trying to find those guys that maybe you stash on the roster. But I think you're right with Odell Beckham Jr. being that third target this season.
Let's turn defense now. Bradley Chubb, Jaden Phillips got hurt late in the year, late November, December. So question here, what are you hearing about them? When will they return? We'll get into the strength of schedule in a minute, but those are two big chess pieces here for the defense because Josh, you're going to score a lot of points. That's for sure. So yeah. What's the update here on Chubb and Phillips? When do you think they'll be back?
Yeah, I mean, based on what I'm hearing, it seems like a lot of people were optimistic that maybe Jaylen Phillips could start the season. But, as camp comes on, this seems like neither of these guys may be ready to go at the beginning of the year. So, I mean, you're losing two of your best pass rushers, arguably two of the best pass rushers in football. You have to have someone step up. We know they drafted Chop Robinson. I think we'll see him get on the field a lot quicker than, maybe you would have wanted him to with, Jaylen Phillips and Bradley Chubb if they were healthy. Mohamed Kamara has been, has that potential. And then Shaq Barrett being that veteran out there. So I think they'll hope to, just rotate guys in there and try to, you're never going to replicate that production out of Bradley Chubb and Jaylen Phillips, but you're hoping to, get by those first few weeks of the season and hope that when you get a Jaylen Phillips and Bradley Chubb back, I mean, then hopefully, then we're talking, right? Then you're cooking when you get those guys back mid-season and you're trying to push to, inevitably do what the Dolphins haven't done in 20 plus years, and that's win a playoff game.
Yeah, Josh, great stuff, man. Last question, we'll get you out of here. Strength of schedule per Vegas projected win totals. Dolphins have the 8th easiest schedule. Non-conference strength of schedule also fairly easy here. I view this, I see the Bills taking a step back. So my argument in my preview column here at FTN was Jets versus Dolphins. Talk to me about the schedule, how you think they're going to go, and is there optimism here in Miami that this is the year to win the division and, like you said, win that playoff game?
Yeah, I try my best not to get too, caught up on those because I think before the year last season, the Dolphins might have had the hardest strength of schedule, or maybe it was the easiest, and it turned out the opposite. So we never know how these teams are going to be. And let's be honest, it's the NFL, so anything can happen. But I agree with you that the Bills are going to take a step back. I guess my biggest concern is the Dolphins have really never shown they can beat Josh Allen. So even with them taking a step back, it's going to be so hard to dethrone the Buffalo Bills. And then you mentioned if Aaron Rodgers is healthy, that Jets team is completely different. We don't even know what to expect out of the Patriots. Obviously, they're rebuilding there. So, I think the Dolphins, the optimism is truly there. I mean, this is that year where I feel like they have to make a statement. They have to win a playoff game. We know Tua Tagovailoa is getting ready to sign that big extension. We know Tyreek Hill, wants more money. Jaylen Waddle just signed it. You can't pay all these players. You can't have that number one offense and then just, completely sputter when the playoffs come around. So, I want to see them win a game. I want to see them get over the hump, but nothing matters until they can prove it at the end of the year. And so far, they haven't been able to do it.
What matters, Josh, is having you on here to talk about Miami, the Finsider, Operation Sports on X at Houtz, Houtz. Josh, thank you for a few minutes here. We'd love to connect again as we get into, the preseason and get into games here. Really excited. And Miami, as you know, in the fantasy world, as big as they come. Thank you so much for a few minutes.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Look forward to doing it again.